Colleagues, we are starting the briefing where we will be discussing the budget 2015. Can the budget 2015 be perceived as the reforms budget? Evaluation by the Reanimation Package of Reforms. We will have Viktoriya Voytsitska MP, Samopomich Krulko MP, Batkivshyna, member of the Committee on the Budget, Yaroslav Markevych MP, Samopomich, Pavlo Kukhta, RPR expert, and Viktor Mazyarchuk, RPR expert. Good afternoon. I will start. I will tell about our vision on the macroeconomic budget, the big things which are there, and the problems which RPR and expert community sees there. First, can you hear? The main problem, I am Pavlo Kukhta, RPR expert. The main problem that we see in the budget, one of the main problems, is the increase of the governmental expenditures and increase of the state share in the economy. Ukraine needs this share to be reduced because it's very often redistributed via corruption mechanisms. All the quasi-fiscal institutions, organizations like Naftogaz of Ukraine, which is the state-owned organization, we distribute about 60% of our GDP via the state, which is non-efficient and corrupt. That is one of the reasons of lagging behind of Ukrainian economy. And the budget, which increases this share, does not correct the problem, but makes it even worse. The budget does not satisfy the recommendations provided by the world experts like Anders Soslund, the Swedish economist who's very famous, and he mentioned some of the markers of economic reforms which would be the indicators that the reforms are being implemented. The decrease of special pensions, the decrease of the state apparatus, decrease of the subsidies for gas consumption, but this is not in the budget. The pensions are in the same volumes as they were, and the subsidies lines are missing from the budget. These reforms are not included into the budget. This budget is very optimistic, talking about the revenues. It will not be executed. The revenues are the same as they were at the level of 2013, which is 4.2% of the GDP. But in 2013, we did not have a recession. We did not have the decrease of the economy. In 2015, this percentage will be smaller. In 2014, this is 3.6% of the GDP. But the budget will not get about 10 billion hryvnia. The deficit will be much more than it's stated. The budget also provides for big volumes of emission. I believe that about 4% of the GDP is the budget deficit, and that's normal budget deficit, but it will be financed attracting the loans. Everything else is about 9% of the GDP. That's Naftogaz of Ukraine, compensation of the losses of Naftogaz of Ukraine, but not just that, recapitalization of banks, helping to the fund of guarantees of deposits. That is emission financing, the same thing that was done this year. Because of that, the reserves of the NBU went down. Because of that, we have this huge devaluation. This factor does not disappear because the state continues to spend a lot of money, and that is very dangerous for the next year, because the reserves, one more issuance like we had in 2014 will wash out all the reserves of the NBU. Maybe this will be the hyperinflation like we had in the 90s. So we can say that this budget, which was passed, does not address the problem of Ukrainian economy, which it had to address. It will not be executed in the whole if it is not financed by international institutions. But seeing no reforms, they will probably not finance. And if they finance, this will be bad, because then we will live for another year without the reforms that we need so badly. That is the budget of the crisis, and it creates the risks of the hyperinflation, of default, and many bad things. That's it. Then I would like to give the floor to Ms. Voytsitska, Viktoriya Voytsitska, Samopomich, MP. I participated actively in the process of the work on the budget of 2015, and I would like to share the information with you about the process, how that was all taking place. And secondly, I would like to tell you what is our understanding of what we got in the result and the action plan for the nearest future. Let's start from the beginning. What is the budget? I believe you all understand it, but we can compare it with the budget of 2015, when a wife makes a list of the food products that the husband has to buy, but with that the list is for 4,000 hryvnias, and the husband has only 2,000 hryvnias. So the question is, what should he buy, and how should he get another 2,000 hryvnia? So what we did, what Samopomich did when we received this little booklet, when we received the draft budget of 2015, we started to work line by line. We started analyzing every line of the budget, not just from the point of view what is planned for different state bodies, but we were trying, taking into account the limit that we had only limited information, we were trying to analyze how much was spent compared to the 2014 and what is planned for 2015. In the result of this work, we made a statement which was made public on our website, and we mentioned that Samopomich found about 100 billion hryvnias which could be saved on the one hand, and on the other hand could be added to the budget. So back to this task, how to buy products for 2,000 hryvnias, we started from expenditures, and a very simple example is expenditures for General Prosecutor's Office. The most interesting is that you should see the text of the law on the budget of 2015, and this document doesn't have the final version because it will be worked on additionally. The General Prosecutor's Office, the more than 4 billion hryvnias are planned for it. If you compare it to 2014, we should have had a figure of 3.5 billion hryvnias. So the difference is 1 billion. When they say that we lack 10 million here, 1 million there for medicines or for foods products, but looking at the General Prosecutor's Office, we saw that taking into account their functions starting from March 2015, the burden of the General Prosecutor's Office should be lower and the budget should be smaller. But the representatives of the Cabinet of Ministers, Mr. Yatsenyuk, worked with us a lot. We discussed all these issues, and a lot was incorporated of our comments. But what is incorporated? We have the draft law on the budget with the figures, with the lines, and there is a recording of the meeting of the Verkhovna Rada, and our next step should be the law on the state budget says that there will be amendments introduced, and will see new figures in this budget, taking into account everything that was approved with the Cabinet of Ministers at the meeting of the coalition. But we were told that these amendments are to be submitted to the Verkhovna Rada on the 15th of February, but we do hope that all these calculations and the figures, like reviewed amounts of money for General Prosecutor's Office, why I'm talking about that, that is quite demonstrative, and the maths is very simple. We agreed that the number of people from the working in the General Prosecutor's Office will be reduced from 20,000 to 15,000, which means that the expenditures will be reduced. We found additional revenues from selling the 3G licenses, and it's about 6 billion hryvnias. We found additional revenues which the state will receive when the price for gas will go up. But looking at this document which you see, we see how much finalized it is. Such things as increase of the revenue part because of the increase of the price of gas. Well, we have the monopolist, Ukrgazvidobывание, they produce gas and sell it at the price of 369 hryvnias, and the market price is more than 500 hryvnias. So the revenues will be about 40 billion hryvnias. That is a little less than 10th part of the revenues of the budget. We understand it, and Yatsenyuk was saying that together with the increase of the price for gas, the expenditures of the budget will grow, and especially those which will go to subsidize the impoverished population. We will insist that the Ministry of Social Policy provides their calculations on such assistance so that we see all the revenues which are getting bigger, and then we will see the whole picture. So in the end, I would like to say that the work on the budget of 2015 is not complete. It goes on, it will continue, and we hope that on the 15th of February we will see a high-quality document which will reflect a realistic picture of what our country be in 2015. And we promise that we will continue to work fruitfully, days and nights, so that we get a high-quality product, high-quality document.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Ivan Krulko. I'm an MP of Ukraine, faction Batkivshyna. I'm a member of Budget Committee. I'd like to inform you on key issues as to how the law on budget for 2015 was adopted. The most important point that comes from the Constitution of Ukraine is not only the essence, the content of the document, but also the procedure of how it was approved. We remember that in quite a radical quick in the Parliament of Ukraine, we voted for the budget 2015. But Batkivshyna faction did not vote for this law. Why? What was the main reason? The main reason was that, in fact, a few of us understood which document we approve in the Parliament. The thing is that the first time during the independence, the Budget Committee, which is the main committee on developing the state budget, did not consider this draft law before it was voted in the Parliament. The Budget Committee had, after the law was adopted, we had to officially ask the Speaker of the Parliament We sent a letter and we told that the Budget Committee has no chance to prepare the law on the budget for the signature of the Speaker, because the Budget Committee had not considered it. And those paragraphs which were included from the voice and that are in stenogram of the Parliament, only the Prime Minister knows about that, and also members of the government. This is a unique case, and it brought us to the situation that until now we cannot understand clearly everything what is written. Is it included or not into the state budget? Only now, on the website of the Parliament of Ukraine, they put additions or two appendixes to the draft law on the budget. Those are concrete numbers. 12 days of the new year we lived with a document which is not published officially, because the law on state budget is a document, text, that is more than 420 pages. All the rest are appendixes, and we have 6 of them, and they include all those numbers as to profits and expenditures we used during the whole year. Only today they published that on the website of the Parliament. What did we have before? There is the article of the Constitution, according to which the law comes into force after official publication. So we can say that official publication provided by the Constitution of Ukraine on the state budget, it has not happened. How to resolve the situation? I agree with my colleague from Samopomich that now we need to finish working on this law of the budget. But Batkivshyna faction analyzed the law on the state budget, likewise other laws that influence on the profit part of the budget. And we found some discrepancies between what was voted for and what we had in the text of the law after it was officially published. If it happened, that is a serious problem, and that requires from certain law enforcement bodies to find out on which stage and who put those changes to the law, they were not voted in the Parliament. The other point we have to mention: this law requires a lot of work. We expect proposals, so we are waiting for the proposals from the Parliament. If the Parliament considers laws according to the procedures, according to the procedures in the Parliament, such situations like we have, it will not happen in the future. That's why our proposal is every law that is brought to the Parliament must go through the full procedure of its consideration, and the committee should prepare the draft laws for the second reading. Just pay attention to one point. MPs of Ukraine gave to this lots of proposed lots of amendments to the draft law on the budget, and if the budget committee could have a chance to consider, like it is provided in the second reading, and if we could touch all the amendments considered, then the draft law would be better. We had no chance for that. And there is a question, what should we do with those amendments and proposals that were given by MPs that were not considered in the committee or in the Parliament, and they cannot be considered in the future because the law now is in force. That's why Batkivshyna faction we will bring the draft law on changes to the budget, and we have concrete proposals that come from the coalition agreement. They come from those agreements which, with the participation of the Speaker and Prime Minister, which were achieved, and which will bring this state budget to some kind of a balance. For this year, for us to live according to what we have. The law on the state budget, likewise other laws, should have clear directions of clear reforms. for this budget, not to be the budget of survival, but to be a budget of reform in Ukraine. I would like to finish with that, and I want to say, though we have new 2015, but the work on over the budget, we use this budget, but we will continue working on it. Thank you for your attention. Dear friends, my name is Viktor Mazyarchuk. I'm an expert on Mazyarchuk, expert on RPR. I will be very brief, and we can speak about the budget for hours, and we can give our proposals, so what should be done, what is the problem. But I would like to draw your attention, first of all, to some systemic problems, systemic errors. First of all, the procedure. The colleagues mentioned that there is a problem with the budget, with numbers, calculations, etc. But there is a problem, a narrow system error. System error, how the budget is approved, how the state budget is considered according to the agenda in procedures in the parliament. We understand that we have a huge problem. We have a war, We need to pass the budget. We have to approve it. That's why the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Yaroslav, pressed him, and he suggested to MPs to pass the state budget they had not seen before. They had not analyzed it. For a week, experts of RPR were working, and also MPs were working on numbers and proposals. And first of all, I'd like to thank representatives not only from political forces that are here, but also of other political forces who took into consideration all the proposals and provided by RPR experts. Now, about the concrete problems. Passing 2015 budget is similar to the budget of 2013 and 14. It was without consideration of under the table. There was no public discussion, and experts' environment opinions were not considered. And I speak not only about RPR, but experts, but also about other experts. What must be done in the budget committee during when the budget is considered? There should not be the representative of the Minister of Finances, but there should be a minister who is responsible for concrete agency for the budget. Why? Because the budget is not just that book with numbers and letters. More than 12,000 of budgets on other levels are related to that, and I mean, the minister is responsible for everything. Next point, transparency. When the budget is approved, there should be maximum transparency. What must be done? What experts would demand? There should be a separate law on transparency of public finances. This draft law was developed by MPs together with our experts, and it is 0949. That's its number, and we expect that it will be passed very soon. It's one more important point. My colleague corrected me that for 12 days Ukraine lived without additions or appendixes to the state budget. What does it mean? It means that there could be some corruptional changes in numbers and agreements achieved. It's something not to be allowed. So when the state budget is approved, on the same day it should be. When the text is published, all the 10 appendixes should be published also. Should be made public. And a couple of minutes of your attention. 2015 will be very difficult, not only because we have the war, but also expectations of the business are very negative, starting with 2008. In all the spheres of economy, expectations are negative. What must be done? We ought to give a chance to business to recreate, to take a rest. And we developed a roadmap of reforms, and it has clear proposals as to every reform. What ought to be done principles, etc. I would like to underline that all political forces signed a memorandum, that they would use this roadmap of reforms in order to provide normal functional economy of Ukraine. I hope that during the preparation of amendments to the state budget, which will start to develop, representatives of the parliament, first of all, everything will be done transparently. They will use what our experts prepared and other experts prepared, and will be responsible for their decisions. I would like to give the floor to you, because we can speak for long, but probably you have questions. With your permission, just one more point. You know, during these days, we were working efficiently with RPR experts, and I would like to express my gratitude to that civic initiative, because a lot of proposals from RPR, they are not just good, they must be passed, they should become a part of national legislation. That's why everything that was developed by experts from that civic initiative, I individually ready, and I hope the representatives from Samopomich and other factions will support that, those who belong to the coalition, and other democratic MPs. I hope that will approve these initiatives, and will do everything possible for those important proposals that have influence on life of the country. I hope that they will become turned into laws and will be implemented in the state budget, and also they will be part of other laws that have influence on profit and expenditures of the budget. One comment: numbers speak better than any word. We speak a lot about political will. So in the case with presidential administration law, we worked and we reduced expenditures for that expenditure by 75%. That's an example. So where there's a political will, we can really run reforms, and we can reduce expenditures, and we can find profits. But we need a political will for that.
So I would like to request our speakers, when they answer, to speak slower. There's a simultaneous translation going on, and so that the English-speaking audience understands you, please speak slower. Please introduce yourself. And TV channel. Ivan Krulko was saying that they saw some differences in the budget compared to what was published. And the second question about budget decentralization, how much it increases the expenditures to the regions. Now people complain that excise tax of 5% for alcohol and tobacco goods, the saleswomen just say that here's the price for the cigarettes and give us 5% more because of this excise tax. Yes, we have identified certain things, and the Batkivshyna faction will prepare its official position on that. I would like to mention some figures which we will double check. But, for example, 238 million hryvnias disappeared for salaries for the workers of regional and district administrations. That is what was voted for, but is not in the text of the budget. Or there is 1.7 billion hryvnias, which were to be transferred for procurement of medicines by the Ministry of Health. And in each region there were to be the tenders and now it's centralized for the whole Ministry of Health Protection. Now tender committee of the ministry will have one tender for 1.7 billion hryvnias for medicine, but it had to be different. It had to be the line for each region. But all these issues are to become the subject for additional analysis, attracting the General Prosecutor's Office, the Accounting Chamber, and that should be done by the Budgetary Committee of the Verkhovna Rada. I will initiate it so that we can very well analyze the draft budget. We will have a very serious discussion all together to find the opportunities and to understand what has happened.
Ну, якщо дозволите, я
We don't have much time, so be short. The experts of the RPR positively assess it. We have a separate group on budgetary decentralization, which worked closely on that. We need to mention, besides the functions which are transferred locally, they also need to transfer money for these functions. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. Talking about excise tax, it should be included into the price. It shouldn't be paid separately. The person should pay once for a certain good. This is a specific example of a systemic mistake. We do not explain to people how the mechanism should operate, because you can see the same things with the real estate tax. Who sets it? People say that that is Verkhovna Rada of Kiev, but the idea was to transfer this to the probably local levels. But people have to do a lot of educational, of awareness work. And we will try to organize such awareness campaign with people about how the price for gas will be increased and how people will get this targeted assistance. Because now when people do not understand how it works, they will have negative emotions about that. And that's the mistake of the state, that there's no awareness campaign. Batkivshyna initiated some public discussions of the budget policy where some of these suggestions or proposals taken into account. Batkivshyna faction initiated and had 2 public discussions of the draft budget and other draft laws. We invited the experts of RPR to these discussions, and also other experts what was the subject of public discussions, what was submitted to the sectoral committees by our faction, and some of the proposals were taken into account, were included. I can talk about the budget code, which was worked on by the budget committee. And when the draft law was considered in the second reading, the proposals of Batkivshyna, 80% of the proposals were included. And the proposals of Batkivshyna faction, they seriously influenced the budget code, so that it became better from the legal point of view, but also it influenced different sectors of the economy. One of the proposals that we initiated was on education, so that For the transitional period of time, the first and second level accreditation educational establishments are financed from the budget. And these proposals were included into the budget code. So I would like to say that some of them were included, but as to the budget itself, not a single proposal of not a single MP was included, because the budget committee had no chance to consider them, and we failed to do that, not because we did not want to do it, but because the procedure of considering the budget was violated. Because the budget is to be passed in the first reading, and after that the budget committee has the opportunity to consider proposals. The budget was passed in the first reading and then as a whole finally at 5 o'clock in the morning. What about the military charge? Till when will it be charged? It's extended for 2015. It's just like asking when the war is over. When we understand that the country has a powerful army and has all the sources of financing the army, then we can talk about canceling such a tax. But answering your previous question, I would like to add, Batkivshyna faction invited the representatives of Samopomich to public hearings and public discussions, and some of the proposals of Samopomich were included. Like in the draft budget, the last paragraph talks about 1.7 billion hryvnias, but Samopomich insisted that the dividends which were accumulated at the state companies or the companies where the share of the state is more than 50%, that we're talking about Ukernafta company, such money are to be received by the budget. That is a specific example. Our proposals were included and they are reflected in the budget law. But we would like to thank Batkivshyna faction for organizing such public hearings. They were very useful, and that is one of the best examples of how the process of discussing the budget should go on. The process of analyzing all the ideas that the society has about amendments to the budget.
I have a question to Pavlo. Now, it's clear with the budget. If there are amendments, is it possible to run all the reforms? Of course, that depends on what kind of changes, what amendments will be done, because you know that this is a temporary budget, and the Prime Minister told about that. And amendments will be adopted in February. One of the requests of experts is that experts will be involved to normal development of those amendments to the budget in February, because we need to put changes and we need to support reforms. We need to make that we need to be sure that they will happen. That depends on MPs, on civil society, on civil groups, on this, and but it's possible to introduce amendments. In December last year. This year, Ukraine will have to pay a debt $3 billion for state bonds of Yanukovych. That's quite a big sum. It's almost like the budget deficit. There is such an odious debt, which is considered to be odious, and there's no need to solve it, and it doesn't provide a default. So, but Ukraine is covering debts for those bonds. And is there this discussion? Is there a desire to cover that debt? And are you considering this opportunity to call it as an odious debt? As far as I understand, That the issue you raised, nobody considered it because, first of all, there is no official, from Russian Federation, there is no official proposal or requirement as to paying that debt of 3 billion you mentioned. We have a political comment. You see, Russian Federation, when they annexed a part of Ukrainian territory, and that is Crimea, and caused losses that's more than 1 trillion hryvnia of losses of Ukraine. Also, we incur a lot of losses because of occupation by the Russian Federation of a part of Luhansk and Donetsk region, and that's why Ukraine must should be a requirement to Russia as to cover those losses they caused to our country. One point, I understand that Russian Federation is asleep and dreaming that about our default of Ukraine, that our economy is well, and everything Russia does that will provoke that. At the same time, Ukraine, even under Yanukovych, when we took that loan, that was of a certain term, and probably Ukraine will have to cover that because of international commitments, but probably will include consideration about annexation and situation in Luhansk and Donetsk. You spoke about infringement of the abuse of the procedures when they passed the budget, but the speaker told in the morning that they wanted to approve a decision on a package legislation development. Do you know anything about that decision? What does it include? Is it meant to make this to legalize that procedure? I can tell you one thing. In Ukraine, there is the Constitution of Ukraine, and there is the proceedings of the parliament. And both documents are quite clear how draft laws are brought to the parliament by the pressure of consideration, improvement, and making them public. All the rest is illegal because that will be out of the constitution or the law on proceedings in the parliament. That's why, first of all, I don't have that information, and there is no such a notion in Ukrainian legislation as a package legislation development. Every subject of legislative initiative, they can bring those draft laws, with exceptions of amendments to the Constitution. The 150 deputies can initiate that process. All the rest of the draft laws should be considered in the parliament. Natalia Kononenko, Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. The question is about the law, which is not a part of the budget, but it was approved during the budget procedures discussions. It's about tax compromise. What happens around this law? The budget will depend on it, as the profit part of the budget depends on it. Your position of APR, that tax compromise, it will cover all the violations of the tax policy in 2014. I hope there will be a special statement of APR. It's a very good thing, but there are a lot of nuances here. If there is a trust to the government, it will work. If there is no trust to the government, sorry, there will be no tax compromise. Thank you very much for this brief. This briefing is all, and in 10 minutes we will have a round table on judicial